everybody, it's that time. We got an amazing interview with Linda Miller and with Kaiju Kim moderating. Everybody, let's hear it nice, loud, and energy. Get a nice round of applause for Linda Miller. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. Hello? Is this working? All right, cool. So welcome, everybody, to this wonderful panel. As you just heard, I'm Kaiju Kim. I'm a wholesome and delightfully stupid content on Blaze Godzilla and his fellow kaiju. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about the lovely, the talented, the one and only Linda Miller. How are you? I'm good, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming all the way to Brooklyn to grace us with your presence. You come from Virginia, right? Yes, I live near Richmond, Virginia. Awesome, awesome. So, everyone knows Ms. Linda Miller from King Kong Escapes fame, of course. Now, that's your first film ever that you've had in, yeah. But so was there like an audition process, or did you just handpick you for the role? How did that go down?
I was living in Japan at the time because my dad was in the Air Force, and I got I got into modeling, and I contracted for the cover of a young woman's magazine. It was weekly, and Arthur Rankin, out of the blue, he saw my cover and he called me, and he said, "I'm doing a movie, and I would like to talk to you about my movie." And I said, "Okay." And I had never had any aspirations to act. And so I met with him, and I met with him 3 times before he convinced me to do the film. And of course, he took me to a real expensive French restaurant in Tokyo, which I'd never been to an expensive restaurant. So that was impressive, you know. He was very nice. He wasn't sleazy or anything. And he just laid out, you know, this is the storyline, and I saw your photograph, and in my mind, you are Susan Watson. And I tried to convince him not to hire me because I said, I've never acted in my life, and I'm going to ruin your movie, you know. So,
But I think you made it better.
well, thank you. But so there was no audition. It was more coercion than anything else. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's just how things go down.
Yeah.
So were you a fan of monster movies at all before any of this? No? No.
No, the only monster movies I ever watched was when I was a kid, and I would come home from school and they'd have Dracula, King Kong, they wouldn't have Godzilla then, Dracula, King Kong, Frankenstein. So those were the only kind of horror movies I ever watched. And even when I was in Japan, I had never heard of Godzilla.
Really?
Yeah, I never heard of God. In fact, I never I never saw a Godzilla movie until 2022. And I was in San Francisco doing a convention, and it was a bit different. It was in a theater, and so they had like 4 or 5 different theaters, and they had King Kong Escapes, Godzilla 54, another Godzilla, and the Green Slime. And I mentioned I had never seen Godzilla before, so they said, "Oh, you go." So I went in and I watched the film and saw how young Takarada-san was. You know, so that's the first time I'd ever seen a Godzilla movie. And then since then, I've seen a couple, you know.
Do you have a favorite by any chance?
I like Godzilla versus King Kong because when they fight, King Kong doesn't get his butt kicked. No, it's kind of a draw, you know, so I really enjoyed that. I went with my friends who had T-shirts that had Team Godzilla, and of course I had Team King Kong on, you know.
I was wearing the Shin Godzilla t-shirt yesterday.
Oh, yeah? How dare you?
I'm outside.
Yeah. So I like that. And I've started watching -1. I haven't finished it yet, but that's a whole different kind of Godzilla movie to me, you know.
Cool, cool. So going back to King Kong Escape, so what was it like working on a Toho production as an American actress in the 1960s?
Okay, I worked almost from the time we landed. Within a month, I was modeling. So every day I would go to work and work with Japanese people. So I was like immersed in the culture, immersed in the language. And so it felt quite normal to go to a Japanese studio. Going to Toho, at that time, I didn't realize who Toho was. I didn't realize who Honda-san was or Takarada-san. I was just, I guess because I was so young, I I didn't grasp the significance of it. But it was fun. Toho at that time doesn't look anything like it does now. It was kind of like in the old, King Kong movies or Godzilla movies, you see like the businesses are like 3 stories high and they're kind of wobbling looking and nothing impressive. That's how Toho was. It just looked like, a bunch of buildings that were really not impressive like you would think a studio would be. So being there, it felt very normal and natural because I spoke Japanese at the time. And I say at the time because I hardly speak it now. But so it was very comfortable. I didn't have a problem with that.
That's also, I was just going to ask if there was any language barriers, but you just said you speak Japanese or Kishi's chair.
I could speak like we're speaking. I couldn't speak on a deep political or religious level.
Yeah.
But every day, hi, how you doing? Let's go to the movies. What you want to eat? Where's the bathroom? Things like that, So that's about my level too. that's about the extent of my Japanese. Yeah.
So do you have any memorable fun behind the scenes memories or stories?
The one thing that stood out, which has nothing to do with King Kong Escapes, but on Toho, they had a commissary, and so you'd go there at lunch to eat. And I was at the commissary, and I don't know if you guys remember Toshiro Mifune from all of the Kurosawa films. I was sitting there eating, and I looked up, and he came walking through the door. Oh, he was magnificent, unbelievable. You all are too young to remember the E.F. Hutton commercials where everybody would be talking, and then somebody would walk in, and everybody would hush because that person was so awesome who walked through the door. That's what he was. He was very handsome, very charismatic. It was like somebody kicked him out of heaven and put him on earth. He was very manly, and so that's what I remembered the most, is that moment being in such awe, because I knew about his films, because he was so big in Japan and in the world even.
That's awesome. So moving on from King Kong Escapes, you have a very small role in The Green's Line.
Yeah.
You remember anything in that at all?
Yes. I was living on Air Force Base housing development, which was real close to Toei Studios. And after I had filmed King Kong, I didn't have much lined up. I was taking some time off. And my girlfriend, I had one American friend at the time, my girlfriend said, oh, they're doing this movie over at Toei. Let's go look at it. So we went to Toei, and back then you could just walk on the lot. It wasn't the security of everything there is now. So we go in the sound stage, and they're filming Green's Line, and we're sitting there watching it. And we saw, the Green's Line monsters come out, and they were, oh God, they looked better in the film, let me tell you this, than they did in real life. So anyway, we're just standing there watching it, and somebody came up to us. I don't know if it was the producer or the director, or floor manager, or whatever. They came up to us and said, girls, you want to be in my movie? So we said, sure. So that's how we got the part, And it wasn't, it was more background than anything else. And I had at that time kind of reddish hair because they had dyed my hair blonde because I'm naturally a brunette. They had dyed my hair blonde for King Kong Escapes, and then I dyed it back, and it was kind of red when I dyed it back. And so then Luciano Beluzzi has red hair, so it was kind of a conflict, so it's in the background. But my screaming, and they kept my scream in the film whenever I screamed, so yeah.
Oh, that's always fun.
Yeah, and Richard Jackal, of the 3, Richard Jackal was very personable, and he would come over to everybody. He didn't care if you were an extra or you swept the floor or whatever. He came over and was extremely friendly and joking and all the rest. And Robert Horton kept to himself, and Luciana Beluzzi, I think, was really shy, and she kind of kept to herself as well. But he was funny.
That's awesome. So it's my understanding that it's been a while since you've acted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's my understanding that you're going to be returning to the Sweden pretty soon.
Yeah.
A small part in a project called Kaiju Island of Fire. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
I know nothing about it. Nothing about it. All I know is they've already paid me half up front. And I said to him, what? We're going to pay me? I said, I haven't done anything. he said, no, we want to make sure you're available. I said, okay, I'll take it. Yeah, I don't know much about it. I've seen, they sent me some, little film, there's a word for it, but whatever that word is, they sent it to me. And so it's got a lot of people in it. It's not like, starring. It's got a huge cast all over the world. We were supposed to have shot it like 2 years ago when they were, I think it was still in Japan. And the funding was an issue. And then, so anyway, Avery Guerra said, no, we really want you to do this. And Carl Craig, who's in Gamera, Destroy All Planets, when he was a little boy, they want him as well. He and I are friends. So we kept saying, it's never going to happen, it's never going to happen. But then, what you don't know about, I met a fellow at one of my conventions who does independent films, and he says, I have a script I'm working on, you'll be perfect for the part, and I'll get the script in July, and I want to start shooting by the end of the year. So I'm kind of excited about that. It's not a kaiju, I'm sorry. But his work. Yeah.
All right, cool. So you're very well known in Kaiju community as Susan Watson, and you've been asked to do multiple interviews. You've been at G-Fest a few times. You're here at Kaiju Brooklyn.
Which I have to say, it's been really nice. I like this.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great to be Vincent. Yes, thank you. So what has it meant for you to be such a huge part of the Kaiju fan community for so many decades?
I hate it when people ask me, like, it's a house, or can I hug you? Yeah.
Okay, so you have to understand the first third of my life, when I went to Japan and did all this, it was like a fairy tale. I put out no effort. I was at the right place at the right time with the right luck, and things just fell into place. So that was the first third of my life. Then the middle third of my life was regular. I was a mortgage broker. I was married twice, divorced twice, just regular life. And then all of a sudden this comes back to me out of the blue. I didn't even know there were fans of King Kong Escape. None of my friends knew I was in this movie. I never talked about it because that voice was so embarrassing to me, because they'd done my voice. You knew that, right? Yeah, that's my part. And so I never told anybody, and I got a phone call out of the blue from Brett Halmanick, and he said, hi, my name is Brett, and I live in Japan. And I got really excited, and I said, oh, I used to live there too. And he says, I know, we've been looking for you. And that's when I found out there was a fan base, which you could have knocked me off my chair. So, so long story short is my boyfriend in Japan, my first love, Natsuki Yosuke, who was in Three-Headed Monster and many, many other films, happened to know my middle name. And when you have a name like Linda Miller, there's millions of us across the United States. So he knew my middle name, and that's how Brett found me. So it was a big shock. So now, when I go to convention, this is just so sweet at this time of my life, to have this opportunity to meet the fans, because you guys are amazing. I've never had a bad experience. I never had something creepy happen to me. You guys have been fantastic. And so I was telling my pastor, he said, well, what do you do? I said, I sign autographs. They pay me and they shower me with love. So what's not to like, So it's meant a tremendous amount to me, especially at this stage of my life, which, I mean, I don't believe just because you get old, you don't have dreams and you try to fulfill them. But it means a whole lot more now than it did 60 years ago.
60 years?
It's going on 60. Honey, I'm old.
You don't look at that over 25. So, what's something that fans might be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, jeez. Oh, I've never been asked that question. Give me a hint. Help me here. I can't think of it.
Just like anything like a fun fact.
I love Mexican food. I love Mexican food. And I haven't had good Mexican since I left California. I love Japanese food. Virginia has the worst Japanese food on the continent. It's terrible. It's terrible. I don't know. I'm an only child, and My mom is 96 and she lives with me. I got 4 cats at home, and I have another cat at the office that stays with me at the office. I'm a Christian. I'm unmarried. I don't know. I can't think of anything extraordinary about me other than that, you know.
That's perfectly fine.
Other than that, I'm boring. I go to work, I come home, and that's basically it.
So you're just a normal person.
I'm just a normal person, yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
You're nonverbal.
Yeah, sometimes that's better than the other.
There's a lot of not normal people.
Yeah,
That's all included. So switching the topic back to kaiju a little bit, just like a fun, playful, light-hearted thing. If you could team up with any kaiju besides Kong,
Godzilla.
okay,
There you go, Godzilla. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't want to team up with him because he's scary, but I would love to be in a Godzilla movie.
What if he was like the one from Godzilla vs. Megalon? What's kind of cute?
Yeah, I would love to do something with Godzilla, to be honest, because you all love him so much, and I want to be part of that. So,
It would be awesome to see you in a Godzilla.
oh my, can you imagine? I don't know, Colin might get mad.
I get jealous.
Only if we're in the film. You know, like Kaylee Hoddle, is that how you say her name? The girl, that deaf girl that was in the, she and Kong got along really well. I said to my manager, I said, you know what? You need to have me cast as her grandmother, so we both could do a film together, you know.
It would be awesome. I would love that.
Oh yeah, those dreams hardly ever come true, but you know, you never know.
You never know. So, go back to King Kong to Skin. What were your first impressions of King Kong's suit?
Okay, contrary to what everybody thinks, I never had a scene with Nakajima-san, with King Kong. Never met him, except for one time. Arthur and Rhodes and I were coming out of either a dressing room or makeup. It was one of the buildings, a makeup room or something like that. We walked out and he just coincidentally happened to be there, and coincidentally there was a photographer there. So that was the first and only time I ever interacted with him, you know, and until we met actually in person in 2016. But the interesting thing was, even though I never met him or interacted with him, one day when we were filming, I had some time between takes, and I was just kind of going around the lot, and I went to one of the sound stages where they were filming the scenes where, you know, where Doctor Who's men take the gas canisters and throw it down, and King Kong, you know, passes out, and then the helicopter clanks on his arms and this little Karen. I watched them film that, and because I'm thinking, how are they going to do all this stuff, you know? So I watched them film that exact scene, and it was a huge sound stage, and they had everything like kind of on, not pillars, but it was up off the ground, real teeny little trees and teeny little helicopters. But if you kind of used your imagination and squinted down, you could actually see them carry Kong away, and it looked very real, you know. That was fascinating. So anyway, to go back, I met Nakajima-san in 2016. I went to Japan to do a convention with Takarada-san, he and I, and that was the first time I met him. And then we did a Monster Palooza in Pasadena one time before he passed, you know. So he was very, very nice, and he loved the girls. Oh, when a nice, young, pretty girl would, you know, want his autograph, he would make sure when they took pictures, he put his arm around them and reflect them. He wasn't, you know, creepy or anything, but it was funny to see how much he loved the girls. Yeah.
Quite the charmer, that's.
Yeah, he was definitely a charmer. And his daughter did most of the, I wouldn't say interpreting, but she kind of helped with the language.
Awesome. So, would you have any advice for young actors or actresses working internationally for the first time?
Internationally or just in general? In general, yeah, I have a lot of advice. Okay.
Lay it on us.
Okay, I hope you're sitting down. Okay. For those of you that are believers, is a two-part answer. Those of you that are believers, the word says that God has a plan for your life. So you need to believe that and speak whatever your dream is, speak it out, manifest it in modern terms, manifest what you believe is your destiny. And I'll say this to everybody, do not let go of your values. Whatever your values are, keep them like inside you, like it's gold. Because everybody in the industry will pull you this way and that way, try to mold you into what they want you to be, to use you. So it's really important you hold on to your value. I'm not talking about the art of acting or anything. I'm just talking about as a human being to survive in the business. You must know who you are, and you cannot give up on that. And there's ways to stay who you are and be in the industry. I didn't know that at 22 years old. I was very sheltered. And that's why I got out of the business, because I couldn't handle it. But I would say the most important thing, whatever your belief system is, hold on to that. Don't let that go. Because when you get to be my age and you look back on your life, you don't want to have any regrets that you compromise this or you compromise that to get where you're at, which is so unfulfilling if you don't hold on to who you really are. So that's my advice.
I love that. Amen.
Yes,
Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. We have a worship meeting right there. It's Sunday. You got y'all go to
That's
church.
right. That's right. I miss church, so we're having it now.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I'm not. We're all spiritual beings. I mean, we're in a physical body, but I don't care who you are and what you believe. At the core, we're all spiritual beings, and that spirit can either lift you up or it can drag you down, and it's all your choice. What choices you make are extremely important. Even like who you marry, which I know that because I did do it right. Even who you marry and the people you hang around with and the things that you watch and the things that you hear and the things that you open your spirit up to are so important. It's either good or bad. There's no in between.
Yeah, that's very true. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
I hope because don't think I'm weird.
No, I love it. It doesn't matter, please. Like, yeah. I think if anything, you understand when it's I got you.
And I have to say, that's why I'm so appreciative of this, because I lost my destiny. You know, I gave up on it, but I actually lost it until I never have it again. And I'm not saying I'm going to go be an Academy Award winning actress. I'm just saying this, what I have now, it's not by chance, you know.
Good stuff. All right, so we have a lot of time left, so I can open it.
Do you want me to talk more?
I mean, if you have anything else to share,
I'm sure something will come up.
I'm sure once we open up the floor to questions. Anyone have any questions for the lovely Linda Miller? We got plenty of time.
I can't see any here. Oh, I see.
We got him right there.
I think I've seen on your philography that you work in America on My Three Sons.
Yes.
And, on the show My Three Sons, it was rumored that Fred McMurray didn't shoot his scenes with the rest of the cast. Did you experience that at all, or?
Okay, I have to tell you a funny story. The way I got the job was I had a best friend, Linda Feldman. We went to acting school together, and she came from kind of a wealthy family. So, not that that matters, but I don't know why I brought it. Anyway, so I was interviewing with Edmund Feldman for the part, and I said to him, "Do you know a Linda Feldman?" He goes, "Yeah, that's my niece." And I said, "Oh, she's my best friend." So I think that's why I got the part, because I knew somebody in the business. So anyway, so the whole thing was I'm on the telephone most of the time. And so I'm on a sound stage all by myself. Fred and Murray's not there, Robbie's not there, none of the other guys, I can't remember their names. They're, Tina, whatever, they're not there. I'm all by myself. With who produced or directed the Johnny Carson show, Fred?
Richard Cordova?
Yes, he was the director. Of course, I didn't know who he was. Anyway, I do my scenes, and I told everybody for all these years, I never met anybody else except myself. Then my friend calls and says, "Oh, you're on prime time on, My Three Sons." So I get on it and I watch it. The first thing you look at is, "Oh my God, was I young?" And then all of a sudden I have these scenes with Ravi that I have no recollection of. And so I only met Ravi, and that's it. Nobody else. Yeah. But it's funny how you don't remember things. And I would have taken a lie detector test and said, no, I never met anybody, but actually I did. And we had quite a bit of time together in the car. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, we got a question like here.
So it sounds like you fell out of film a little bit after you were done with the acting in Japan. But were you somebody who like watched films? Are you into movies and stuff?
Oh, I love movies. I love movies. My mom's a big movie buff, and when we were living in Japan, the local theater on base for 25 cents, we could go to, they change it every couple of days. And when Dr. Zhivago came out, they charged 50 cents, and we were outraged. Anyway, so we would go, every time the theater was open, we would go. And my mom loved movie magazines, and so we had a ritual. We'd get the new movie magazine in a big Hershey's chocolate bar, and we would, that was like her guilty pleasure. And right after I did the movie, we got one of the magazines, and Arthur Rankin was in it. He was going through a divorce. It was all this scandal stuff on the divorce. So, but yeah, I love films. I love movies.
What are some of your favorites?
Oh, some old times. I love The Ten Commandments. I love Gone with the Wind. I love anything Keanu Reeves is in. I don't care what it is. I love that man.
He doesn't.
Yeah, I like Brad Pitt, but it depends. My girlfriend and I went and saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and that's where when that time period is when I was in California. The clothes, the cars, she and I were just geeking out because, I remember we were at this corner, and I remember this, and I remember that. And I was there when the Sharon Tate murders happened. I was living in a canyon over from, she was in Coldwater, and I was in, where was I? I was in Coldwater. I was one of the canyons. I can't remember now. And so it's like movies that, I don't like gory movies, What? I mean, I watched a series, I'm gonna really go out here. I watched a series on Netflix called Warrior, and it's a lot of Chinese martial arts and stuff, and swords and things. I watched that, but I'd have to close my eyes when they were cutting up somebody. So I don't like gory stuff. I like stuff that makes me feel and makes me think. And I love documentaries. And when I'm on Netflix, the first thing I go to is see if there's a new documentary. And I love detective stuff, whodunits, and and I love mafia stuff. So I love film. I really do.
So I hand over here.
You mentioned that you were friends with someone who was in a Gamera movie. Have you seen
Yeah.
any of the Gamera movies?
I saw his Gamera movie, and that's it. That's the only one I've ever watched.
And if you, I recommend checking out some of the other ones. And if you do, I was also curious if you had the chance to be in like a Gamera project, would you do it?
Okay, you have to understand, as a person who loves acting and doesn't get a chance to do it, I would be in any movie except a porn movie. Yeah, so I love working. And so the answer is absolutely yes. But Carl Craig, this is an interesting story. Carl Craig is about 10 years younger than I am. And we both lived at Grand Heights at the same time. And we both made our movies at the same time. But he was like 9 years old, and I was 19. And so I never met him. And at one of the conventions at a panel, I joked, and I said, "Oh yeah, I used to babysit him." I didn't, but we both laughed. So Carl lives about an hour and a half away from me. And if we have a convention in New Jersey or certain parts of Pennsylvania, we'll drive instead of fly, and we'll drive up together. I drive up to his house, spend the night with him and his family, and then we go on to the convention the next day. And I wish he did more conventions because you talk about someone who can talk and tell stories. He's had a very interesting life.
That's really cool.
Yeah, he's really, really cool.
Honestly, I didn't know that you knew him. That's really
Yeah, we're friends, yeah. And his son lives in Richmond, and sometimes when he comes down to Richmond, if he's got time, we'll get together and go to Chick-fil-A, which is not my favorite, but it's Southern that everybody in the South loves Chick-fil-A. He's a very interesting man. Had an interesting life in acting, and he was a fighter pilot, and he worked for the government, and he's just done all kinds of things.
real cool.
Yeah.
All right, you got a question over here?
And thank you for your questions, by the way.
So you work on Japanese film sets and American film sets. What are some key differences you've noticed between the two? And second question, what's your favorite Keanu Reeves movie?
I will answer the two very important questions. I'll answer the questions that I can. I only had 2 experiences in Japanese sets. After Kong, I did a TV show called 7 Faces of Man. I was a guest star that week. They're faster. They get the take, and that's the take. We don't do 5,000 takes, which you hear stories about American, directors that take 25, 29, whatever. They don't do, at least my experience was they don't do that there. It's like, you got it, and put it in the can,
Even if the actor messes up slightly, it's like that's good enough.
Even the actor what?
Even if the actor like messes up slightly, they'll be like, all right, we'll move on.
My experience was, if the director was happy, 1 or 2 takes, and that was it, Now, maybe on Kurosawa's film or some other artsy-fartsy films, they may do more stuff, But my film was not going to win an Academy Award, It was going to be a fan favorite, but they came at from money was important. They didn't want to waste a lot of money and a lot of time, because they want to make money off of the film, and it's not going to be up for any awards, so to speak. And that was the difference. My experience, which is limited in the States, is you have more breathing room to explore. I mean, my scene on My 3 Sons was on the telephone, so there wasn't a lot of exploring I had to do. Didn't have to cry or scream or do anything outrageous. But that's one thing I did notice. They gave you a little bit more breathing room on an American set. And I assume that's still the case.
All right, let's still have many time for questions. Got one right here.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
My question is a 2-part question. What was it like working with the late Hideoro Amato, who played Doctor Who in King Kong Escapes, and director Inishiro Honda?
Okay, let me just answer the question. I don't know anything about Power Rangers. I'm so sorry. I couldn't answer your question. Amamoto, Doctor Who, was just as weird in person as he was in the film, and a big sweetheart. I loved him. My mom was on the set with me. I mean, only child, I was very sheltered. My mom was on the set with me every day. And Amamoto-san would do some scenes. We had a few scenes together, but not many. And so he'd be shooting his scenes or whatever. He'd be walking on the sound station. He had a cape. And he'd walk up to you, and when he walked away, he'd twirl his cape when he walked away. It's very dramatic. And just the nicest man. Just odd, but very, very nice. I really liked him. And we did, after the film was over, he invited us to watch him. He played Fantasia on the stage in Tokyo. And he was in tights, and he had these real skinny legs, and he even looked stranger, in that costume. But he was very odd, I mean, just really odd guy, but a nice man, and I enjoyed working with him as just a little bit that we had. But I enjoyed talking with him in between sets, because at the time, like I said, I could speak Japanese, so I could talk with the people. And what was your second question?
My second question,
Honda-san?
Inishiro Honda.
Okay. Honda-san was like a daddy on the set. You knew he was dad, and he was in charge, but he was a kind and a loving father. That's how I interpreted him. And he knew right away that I had no idea what I was doing. And I knew that I didn't know what I was doing, so I wasn't, cocky or anything like, I wasn't the ugly American. So he was very gentle with me and patient, but he knew exactly what he wanted, and when I gave it to him, you knew he was happy, and when I didn't, you knew he's like, oh, let's move on to something else, So I knew when he was pleased. And one of my pictures I have, it shows me in the tree, right when we go to the island, and Gorosaurus comes to attack me, and Colin picks me up, he puts me in the tree, and I'm supposed to look afraid. So evidently I wasn't doing what he liked, so he demonstrated. He said, Linda, I want you to do this. I want you to go, like that. They demonstrated. He wanted me to put my hand across and look frightened. And so I just mimicked what he did, and he was very happy. But he definitely was in charge. It was no nonsense. He knew I could see in his mind he had everything planned out. We do this scene, we went to this scene, and went to this scene. And we went to the island scenes when we were on the island. We're on location. We went to Oshima Island. We got there by boat, and we all had, the cast and Honda-san and some of the main people. We all ate dinner together, and it was a real Japanese hotel where you sat on a tatami, and it was a big hole, and your feet are on the little shelf, and then the thing they cooked on, whatever it was in the middle. And best Japanese food I'd ever had, And he just was a very kind man who knew exactly what he wanted to do. He was definitely in charge.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. All right, any more questions for Linda Miller? I see one back there.
So you mentioned that you were dubbed in the English version of the movie. So I want to get two questions. One, when you first heard the voice, what was your reaction? And two, were you ever told why, or you weren't told why you think they did that?
I wanted to crawl into a hole and die the first time I heard that. I went, oh my God, my voice can't be that bad that they have to use that voice. But I thought it must be, I was so embarrassed by it that, like I said, I never told my friends I was in the film. The only people who knew was when I first started acting, because that's a credit. And then after I got the call from Brett, my mother should have been a PR person. My mother called the local newspaper and told them about me, and I almost died. So they did an article on me I live in a small town. They did an article on me, and then my friends found out I had been an actress, and I was in this film. So I never told anybody because it embarrassed me. It embarrassed me because the voice was so bad. It embarrassed me because I thought I must have been really awful, so I was humiliated. And then I never knew why. I never had an answer. And I tell people, if Arthur were still alive and I ever met up with him, I would slap him. I had a dream. I just remembered that. I had a dream one night. I was in New York on the street, and I ran into Arthur. And before I could ask him, I woke up because I wanted to ask him why. So I don't know why. I mean, I've got theories, but they're not based on anything factual. But that bothers me, that voice really bothers me. It's embarrassing because it was so bad. I thought it was so bad, but the Japanese version, when the film was done, we had a premiere in Tokyo, and I saw the Japanese version in the movie theater, and the voice they used was great. She did a great job. In fact, when we were filming, Rose and I would speak our dialogue in English, and the Japanese would respond to us in Japanese. So that's why they had to dub both versions, the Japanese and the American. And you would think that it would be weird or confusing, and it wasn't at all. It kind of flowed. And so we spoke English, and they would respond to us in Japanese, and we'd respond in English, and they would respond in Japanese.
All right, got a question over here.
This is probably pretty random, but toy collecting is a huge part of the kaiju fandom. Do you own any figures like King Kongs or anything like that?
What's just back up? You bought me like kaiju figures or anything like that?
No, no, no. Well, I have, okay, people give me things. I've got King Kong. In Japan, we called it Mechanicon. You guys call them Mechacons, you know. So when you say Mechacon, I go, what's that? No. But in the film, he was Mechanicon. So I've had people, in fact, Maru-san just gave me a real nice tall figure of Mechacon. And so I've had people give me things, and I have in my home, I have stuff that people get. I've never purchased anything myself, but I usually get some form of gifts everywhere I go. I get things from this tall to this tall, you know. And so I have them around my house. And when I do videos sometimes, like I won't be at G-Fest this year, but it's their 70th. Is it called Godzilla 70th? Yeah, it must be Godzilla 70th or something like that.
Yeah, PCR last year. So.
Somebody's 70s. And so they asked me, you know, to do a little video saying happy 70th. And so I had King Kong, and the figure I have of King Kong and I did the video together. Yeah.
I also just wanted to steal this from Nick from earlier, but what is your favorite Keanu Reeves movie?
Oh, God. Oh, you know what? He did a video with Paula Abdul, is when I discovered him. He was so sexy. Oh, my dog. And that stands out in my mind over all of them. I don't know the names of titles. Sweet November, he did. The Lake movie with Sandra Bullock and Speed. I love that. Anything, I can't remember names of movies, but you know, if there's, I haven't seen any of the John Wick because that's kind of violent. You know, oh, the Matrix ones, I love that. You know, he could do a dog commercial and I'd be happy. His name. Yeah, all right.
He's something. He's good people. All right, and you know, you have time for one more question if anyone has one more question. Oh, I see one in depth right there.
I have a question. How, like, as you said before, you didn't know like how like you became like a actor. Like you didn't know. It's just coincidence. You got any advice for people who are acting? You got any advice for that?
As far as the art of acting,
Yes, the art of act. Like
go to school, do everything you're afraid of. Oh, I was afraid of singing because I have a horrible voice. Go to acting school, see lots of films, study things. If you get a script, I heard the best advice. Says, I think it was Christopher Walken gave this advice that when he got a script, they asked him how he was so unique in his presentation of dialogue. And he said he would read through it and like hear it as a psalm in his head. And he would just read it until it became like a psalm, because his background is musical theater. Also heard another one say, when you get to work, know your lines. Don't just guess, don't go to work. I mean, don't go, you know, your first day of read through and have your script there. Know your lines, be prepared. That's one thing that they taught us in acting school is be prepared. Know your lines, know your character. It's going to evolve as you're working with other actors, but definitely it's like a job. If you're an electrician, you've gone to school, you know what to do so you don't electrocute yourself. And so acting is a job and it's a craft. So study and be well prepared and watch people. You know, if you're like when we were in Tokyo, my mom and I were sitting in one of the big hotels, and we were just watching people, you know, different interactions, especially Americans with Japanese that had not had interactions with anybody Oriental, and their reactions. So watch other people's reactions to things and take a little mental picture of it and store it away, because that might come in handy for a certain scene that you don't know quite what to do, but that person did that thing that you wouldn't do, but that person did and it inspired you. So I think being prepared is the most important thing.
how can you be prepared? Like
Pardon?
how can you like ask these
I just said, how can you prepare?
Well, acting school, different kinds of acting school. I only went to one and then I got out of the business, but different teachers teach differently. Even dance is important because your body's involved and you can feel really awkward physically. So take dance classes, become friends with your body, and study movies, watch movies a lot, and don't just watch them for the entertainment value. You know, even if there's like old time movie and then they remake it, watch how different the actors are in it, because times are different. And like I say, when and if you get a script, even if it's just doing a scene for your acting school, know it forwards, backwards, inside out, so you're not memorizing and thinking, okay, now when she does this, I'm gonna do that. So, because that's not good acting. You need to know it so much that it just flows out of you when you're doing a scene, you know, because you can't just parrot words. You've seen some bad acting that's just saying the words. You've got to feel it so that it becomes organic. And you can't do that if you don't know your lines over and over and over and over again until they become part of you. I know that's not necessarily easy to do, and you can't always do that, but that should be your goal. You know, if you're well prepared and there's other actors there, they're gonna feed into what you're doing and you'll feed off of them and you'll be amazed. If you don't have to be, I've got to remember this line. If you don't have to remember that line, you just know the scene so well. When he does it a different way than you had imagined, you can naturally react with whatever the words are. You can react, and it might be totally different than what you studied on your own. So preparation is maybe a major thing.
Very important. All right, and we are all out of time for today, but thank you so much, Linda, for doing that.
And thank you for those of you with kids that are indoctrinating your children into Godzilla and King Dog.
All right, folks, thanks again for such an amazing panel, amazing interview with Linda Miller. Let's hear one last.